In this video, we present a brief demonstration of our work on multi-perspective simultaneous embedding, MPSE. The goal is to visualize a dataset in 3D so that we can see a different interpretation of the data from different viewpoints. One of the main goals when visualizing a high-dimensional dataset is to produce an embedding in 2 or 3-dimensional Euclidean space that suitably captures pairwise relationships among the represented data. The classical approach is multidimensional scaling, MDS, which aims to preserve the distances between all pairs of data points. Dimensionality reduction is a more general version of this problem, aiming to project a given dataset to a lower dimensional space. There are many popular algorithms for dimensionality reduction, from linear methods such as principal component analysis, PCA, to nonlinear methods such as t-SNE and UMAP. We consider situations where instead of just one pairwise distance function, the input is a set of pairwise distance functions on the same set of objects. The optimization goal of multi-perspective simultaneous embedding, MPSE, is to place the points in 3D so that the embedding simultaneously preserves the distances between the objects when projected to some planes. To illustrate MPSE, we consider a dataset that describes multiple social bonds among a number of prominent families in 15th century Florence. The graphs shown illustrate marriage and loan relationships among the families. Each node represents a family. The graph on the left represents marriage relations. An edge between two families represents that at least one marriage between members of these two families took place. Similarly, the graph on the right represents loan relationships. An edge between two families means that at least one member in one family took a loan from a member in the other family. The positions of the nodes were determined using multidimensional scaling on the shortest path distances among the families for each attribute. The two visualizations are computed independent of each other, so there is no obvious relationship between the two. In this example, the goal of MPSE is to produce a single 3-dimensional embedding that simultaneously represents both marriage and loan relations among the families. Shown is an MPSE embedding of this dataset. If viewed from the right perspective, the apparent distances between the families are those that best represent marriage relationships among the families. If we change the perspective, we can also find a view that best represents loan relationships among the families. Plotted are 2-dimensional projections of the 3-dimensional MPSE embedding along the perspectives that best describe the two attributes in the data. The color represents closeness to the 41st family. Note how this family is very central in the marriage network, but is at the periphery in the loan network. The MPSE embedding is able to simultaneously embed this information in a 3D plot. We propose a mathematical formulation of the MPSE problem in 2 different settings. The first setting takes as input a set of distance or dissimilarity matrices along with a set of projection matrices. The goal of the algorithm is to embed the dataset in 3D such that on each given projection we approximate the corresponding distance matrix. The second setting takes as input only the set of distance or dissimilarity matrices. The goal of the algorithm is to embed the dataset in 3D and to find the best projection planes so that each projection best approximates the corresponding dissimilarity matrix. For both settings, we propose optimization algorithms that generalize standard multidimensional scaling. The standard MDS stress function is the sigma, where the variables x1 up to xn correspond to the possible embedding of data points. We propose to generalize the stress function into the following S, which we refer to as MPSE stress function. Here, the P1, P2 up to Pk are the projection functions, and x1 up to xn again correspond to the possible embedding of the data points. For the first setting discussed before, the projections are known and are fixed, and we only need to minimize over x1 up to xn. While for the second setting, the projections are also variables. We demonstrate MPSE in action using several datasets. The motivation behind the first dataset is the 1-2-3 statue by James Hopkins, where if you look at the statue from different viewpoints, you get to see numbers 1, 2, and 3. This example contains the dataset that consists of points sampled from pictures of digits 1, 2, and 3. We sample 1000 points from each picture and then compute the corresponding distance matrices. We feed the algorithm with these distance matrices. The goal is to place the points in 3D so that under the first given projection you get the digit 1, under the second projection you get the digit 2, and under the third projection you get the digit 3. We also demonstrate the case where the projections are not specified and the algorithm needs to find it itself. Here are the results for the first experiment with fixed projections. And here is the result for the second experiment with varying projections. As we can see, in both settings we were able to place the points in 3D so that the corresponding projections recover the digits. Next, we test the stability and the scalability of the proposed algorithm. We sample some fixed number of points uniformly from a solid ball with radius 1 in 3D and generate random projections of this data onto R2. From these projected datasets, we generate the corresponding distance matrices. The input for algorithm 1 are these distance matrices and the projection matrices. The input for algorithm 2 are the dissimilarity matrices. We consider the following two experiments. For the first experiment, we fix the number of projections to be 3 and vary the number of data points between 100 and 2000, with increments of 100. We compute the average running time for both algorithms and the number of times that the algorithm successfully found the global minimum over 10 instances. Here, by successfully finding the global minimum means that the estimated value of the stress function is within a small neighborhood of the true stress value. The following two figures demonstrate the results. As we can see, the running time of both algorithms are comparable and increase linearly with the number of data points. The second figure shows that the increase in the number of data points does not affect the success rate of both algorithms. For the second experiment, we fix the number of data points to be 200 and vary the number of projections between 1 and 20 with increments of 1. We again compute the average running time for both algorithms as well as the number of times that the algorithm successfully found the global minimum over 10 instances. The following two figures demonstrate the results. As we can see, the running time of both algorithms are comparable again, and they increase linearly with the number of projections. The second figure shows that the increase in the number of projections does not affect the success rate of both algorithms. We created an interactive tool where one can post their data, pick the preferred parameters, and find its MPSE visualization. The dataset that we consider is called circle square dataset, which is also motivated by an optical illusion known as circling the square. In this example, we sample 100 points from an image of a circle and 100 points from an image of a square and place the points in 3D so that the corresponding projections recover the square and the circle. We demonstrate the application of both algorithms for circle square dataset by picking the dataset or uploading our own distance matrices, setting the preferred parameters, and running the experiment. We check the output, and for the varying projections, we check the output, as we can see, in both cases, we were able to place the points in 3D so that the corresponding projections approximate a circle and a square.